Namaskar, Akhilesh. Namaskar to you.
You too,
Welcome
Sujit.
to another episode of Beyond Headlines. Uh, Akhilesh, Yogi, one more Yogi handling the scene, one more Yogi controlling our national stock exchange. Very interesting. Um this Yogi seems to be somebody who has no body. He seems to be a Yogi from directly from heaven. So. This our Chitra Ramakrishnan seems to be completely, in awe of him. In fact, she calls him Dai, Thou, and all that. That's how she refers to him. This yogi also seems to be flirting with her. Actually, the CEO, MD of NSE. Of course, that's their problem. I don't see that much as our problem. But the fact is, a lot of our secrets, a lot of the trading secrets, a lot of what happens in the board of NSE, all this was translated to this man. Akhilesh, my first question to you. Okay, I let us before we get into the detail. My first question to you is, how could somebody who is supposed to be the queen of boors and who is supposed to be, she was the one, Akhilesh, you obviously know about this. She was the one who designed the laws of SEBI. She was part of that committee. Okay, the same SEBI which is now trying to hunt her down. She was the founder members, one of the founder members of National Stock Exchange. So she was indeed a very this thing. I mean, very affluent lady and very intelligent lady. How could she fall for such things? There's some Babaji sitting there and writing her letters, and imagine the Babaji has no body but can do email with a proper email ID and all that. So think about it.
And have you seen the email ID? It says Rick Yajur Sam. That's what he
Rick
made us.
Yajur song. Correct. So complete. It looks wrong, isn't it? It looks wrong. I mean, come on, Babas don't do all this Rig, Sam, Rig Yajur Ved and all that. I mean, come on, so
So,
anyway,
Sujit, my take on this is something like this. If she wants to follow a Baba, that is her personal prerogative and personal life. Okay.
perfect.
She can follow whichever Baba she wants. She can think whatever she wants to think about him. She can have whatever faith she decides to do. But that has to be only her personal domain. The point of time when that Baba switches into professional domains is where you have to have serious objection to it. It constitutes a serious contravention. And especially when that Baba comes into your professional domain, you start sharing all the most confidential and sensitive information about the exchange. An exchange where the market capitalization at that time when she was exchanging was about 99 lakh crores. That's the kind of public wealth which was traded on an exchange of which she was the managing director. And she very carelessly gives all the confidential data about the exchange, its management policies, its dividend policy, its HR policy, its financial projections, its ongoing regulatory issues, etc., etc. So keep that Baba in your personal domain. But if you get that Baba in your professional domain, then you have seriously violated the law of the land, especially because you're dealing with a stock exchange where data and information is the king. You had better be sensitized to it. So that really bothers that, okay, you can have whatever faith you want to have in life, but what made you transgress and get that personal faith into professional dealings? And what actually I feel very shocked further is she didn't mind telling all this to SEBI in her submissions to SEBI about it. She was quite open about it, that I've been seeking the advice of a Baba. And she also says, what's wrong about it? Because many politicians, I suppose she had Chandaswamy and all those in mind, have been doing that. So why can't I do that? I think it's a major misconduct, Sujit.
Akhilesh, see, both of us have worked in corporate world. Both of us have worked in corporate before we ventured on our own. Tell me, we've seen CEOs, we've been CEOs. How would you reach a level where you, I mean, believing in babas or believing in some holy person or gurus and all, but like you rightly said, is a very personal thing, and anybody can pursue that. That is not a problem. But s- at this level, day-to-day operations was said transmitted to him. He would.
Sujit, at this level, and with what statements, one of the closing lines in her emails, which I believe she often wrote, was the exchange has been functioning with your grace. So she has got no faith on herself, no faith on her management team, no faith on the law of the land, no faith on the board of directors. They, of course, were rubber stamps, which is what subsequent events show, but she has faith on a Baba. So all our public wealth, which was traded on that exchange, was at the mercy of a Baba. That is what the MD CEO of the exchange says. I mean, this is like crossing a line which we all now call it to be bizarre.
Bizarre. And you know what is weird, Akhilesh? Akhilesh, I don't know. Maybe I'm stupid. I have no proof to say this, but Akhilesh, I'm finding out all of this very weird. This is not real. This can't be the real story, right? I mean, some Baba writes to you, that to a CEO of NSE, National Stock Exchange, and that to such a educated woman, and he writes to you from a email ID which you can anyway for her it's a matter of just asking her IT fellows to figure out where is this email coming from. It if it comes from heaven, then they will tell her that Baba, it is coming from heaven directly, unless and until that, it's easier to find the IP address and all of that. She goes on consulting him. She goes on doing everything what he says. Most of the stuff what he's saying is actually or illegal, against the law. Number one. Number two is she hires a person who was getting some 15 lakh rupees. This Anand Subramaniam, who was getting 15 lakh of rupees. She hires her for 1.5 crores, makes him some first CEO or something, and then makes him group uh, operating officer, GU, and all of that. And I mean, the name itself
So
sounds
Sujit,
weird.
what makes it, now bordering into a crime is, why is it that when she resigned on 2nd of December 2016 from her post as the MD CEO of NSE, and of course that Anand was asked to leave earlier, why is it that only their two laptops were destroyed by the NSE? Why is that so?
Correct.
It's
Correct.
clearly a case of destruction of evidence with an intent in mind. It was not happenstance, it was not bona fide, it was not accidental. So the first is that, coming to this gentleman, Anand Subramaniam, his entire matter is so murky that if she had any sense of shame, she would have actually never indulged in it. I mean, here is a person who was not even the mid-ranking employee of a subsidiary of Bama Lorry, company called Transafe. He was in
Correct.
charge of leasing and vehicle repair. He had no background in finance. His annual salary was 15 lakhs a year. He's taken in at a post where he's first drawing 1.62 crores, almost 10 times of what he was drawing. In a matter of 2, 3 years, his salary was almost 5 crores a year, higher than anybody else in the company, including the president and company secretary of the organization. There is no record kept of his interview or recruitment whatsoever. Every year he is given a rating of top performer, and there is no HR record maintained whatsoever again. He was never entitled to attend board meetings, but he is a permanent attendee at the board meetings, to the extent that everything that transpired at the board meeting used to go through him. Every senior man reports to him, and she appoints him as her advisor and group operating officer and doesn't take any decision without him being involved. I mean, was she bonkers? What are you doing? A man who's unfit, who's inappropriate, who's inexperienced, who's incompetent, is now the advisor to the CEO, MD of the National Stock Exchange, and she doesn't do anything without asking him. And it doesn't end there, Sujit. For your information, he did not have a full time job. He was on 4 days
Yeah.
a week posting. Every weekend, he had the privilege to go to Chennai. Those are the air tickets he gave, even though he was based out of Chennai and Mumbai both. And he traveled abroad umpteen times, and he would travel first class, which most of the employees of NSE are not allowed. So, what was this going on? And where was the sanctity maintained of managing the NSE by these level of people? And while this was going on, let me now shift to the board of directors. The chairman of NSE at that time, Sujit, was a gentleman called Ashok Chawla. He is a former finance secretary of India. Incidentally, he was also the chairman of Yes Bank when Rana Kapoor did all his misdeeds. Just to inform you. Former IAS
Oh.
officer, former finance secretary. The second IAS officer on the board of NSE, a gentleman called Navid Masood. Former IAS officer, former forerunner to be the CAPSEC of India, number one Babu of the country. You had a senior chartered accountant like Dinesh Kanabar, who at that time was a vice chairman of KPMG. You had you had a gentleman called Prakash Parthasarathi, if I'm right. He was the founder and managing partner of Premji Invest, the investment wing of Azim Premji. You had TV Mohandas Pai, CFO, former CFO of Infosys. You had these kind of people, and then you had Dharmisha Rawal, who is a former ED of SEBI itself. They were aware of what is happening. SEBI says that in 2016, they informed the board of directors of all these nonsenses taking place at NSE. Why did they keep quiet? They kept quiet to the extent, Sujit, that sensitive contents, or rather, when these kind of uncomfortable matters were discussed in the board meeting, they were deliberately not even recorded in the minutes. Now, who do you hold guilty, Sujit? Why did the board do nothing to restrain her, stop her when they were aware of all this? Acha. The other bunch of directors on the board of NSE, which SEBI appoints on every stock exchange, they are called PIDs, public interest directors. They included retired Justice B.N. Srikrishna. They included a very well-known chartered accountant called Y.H. Maligam. I mean, what were these people doing? They were aware of things that were going on. So it's not just Chitra at fault, it's a complete systemic collapse. And things continued. Also involved, Sujit, what comes out from the preliminary findings that have come from the CBI investigation were some officials of SEBI. So it was a collective nonsense going on.
So this Yogi bit, could this be a cover up?
I think, Sujit, the Yogi bit to me is more like a notanki. It makes
Correct.
no corporate sense to me. It is just a distracting element in the entire scene, if you ask me.
Akhilesh, I'll tell you, Maharashtra, Maharashtra, just digressing for 2 minutes, in Maharashtra, there are these thieves. Okay, they normally rob in villages. It's in interior parts of Maharashtra, villages. These thieves, they normally rob cattles. Okay, so what they do is, in villages, you tie a belt to the cow, so that when the cow moves, you know that the cow is moving, and you know where the cow is. If somebody is taking your cow and going and all, you know about that. So what these robbers do is they come dark in the night, late in the night. They come. They first remove the bell, and there's one guy who takes the bell and runs east, and the other guy takes the cow and runs west. Now, what happens? The entire villager, they run east after the bell. Okay, while the cow is already gone. This I is it something like this, Akhilesh?
I would probably think so, Sudhit. Now let's come back to what's happening and the most serious element about it. This whole thing of Yogi and all that is, to me, a complete notanki.
Hmm.
The real thing that is happening, Sujit, is that you had the co-location scam in NSE that took place. The
Hmm.
co-location scam was meant to give privilege, advance access to only a few people to SEBI data, or sorry, to the exchange data when trading started. So they had first access to data, they had first access to trading. Co-location meant that those privileged brokers were allowed to keep their own servers in the in the NSE premises. I keep saying SEBI because SEBI officials themselves have been part to all this. So they kept their servers in the NSE premises such that when trading started, they were the first ones to access trading and to access
Correct.
the trading data.
Correct.
Sujit, thousands of crores of rupees are bound to have been made in this kind of a dubious access to data given to people. What also was being done was two gentlemen in particular were given access to data in such a way that they could design algorithms on the basis of this data that they had, very private data made privy to them, and those algorithms also made them mint money. So the real issue here is not really all these, antics of Chitra Subramaniam and her being so besotted, if I have to say, with a yogi, and she says, I took his advice for 20 years, etc. The real issue is the co-location scam, the algo trading scam, wherein certain people had access to it, and SEBI has not yet completed its investigation in this case. When one director of SEBI was trying to come to some headway, gentleman called Rajiv Agarwal, his extension as the director there was terminated. He did not get it, and thus some attempt was made to scuttle the investigation. CBI has just started looking into it. Since 2018, the co-location scam has been registered by the CBI. They have filed no charges so far. But to me, the real issue to be investigated is this. All this can keep entertaining us, this Yogi and all his mails, and he telling Chitra, you are looking so much better, and you must pleat your hair better, and I'm going to Seychelles. Why don't you come over? And if you know how to swim, we can go swimming together, all that. That's just sheer entertainment. It is, as you said, the robber taking the cow's bell and running to the east, and the actual robbers running to the west with the cow. The the cow here is the data that was given access to those very few people. Nobody has mentioned this so far because investigation has not made headway. It looks like it was not allowed to make a headway because 2018 is when all this started. This is all data that is available. As you pointed out, Sujit, it's very easy to just come to know the footprints of data because that's what cyber technology is all about. We are in 2022. It's been 4 years since this investigation has made no headway. I really hope that now with all this coming out in the open and NSE actually becoming a laughing stock, somewhere the agencies will now take it more seriously. If they were being hindered, I hope they are not hindered. And we come to know who are those people, including officers at SEBI and NSE, who are those who have minted money by taking preferential access to data through this co-location and co-trading. I think the real issue is that, Sujit.
Akhilesh, tell me, this is deja vu, isn't it? This is deja vu. Remember, you and I sat in the same office and spoke about ICICI. Yeah, spoke about ICICI, and we asked the same question, wherein we said that Mrs. Chanda Kochar, how could the board be absolutely ignorant when the chairperson was giving one loan after another loan to the same company? We asked the same question, and we also said, you said made the same statement that somewhere down the line the investigation will end here and it will not go any further. Lo behold, that's exactly what happened. Investigated ended, nothing is till now. ICICI runs the way it is. Isn't this the same?
It is deja vu in terms of in the sense that, well, similar format, similar modus operandi. A powerful CEO, apparently with deep connects in Delhi, they say that if any top officer even visited the finance ministry or any ministry in Delhi, Chitra Ramakrishna would come to know of it. So a powerful CEO, apparently very deep connects in Delhi, and a fawning board, a subservient board, a board paid handsomely for attending board meetings. This board of directors I spoke about in 2015-16 got fees of about 2 crores, a little over 2 crores, only for attending board meetings, Sujit. So here is a board willing to be so subservient to a CEO who's either perceived to be too powerful or who's perceived to be one who can distribute goodies. What else can be the reason why they become so subservient and fawning on them?
Now, tell me, Akhilesh, what I want to understand this. What exactly is the role of a board in an organization like an NSE or even like ICICI?
Sujit, the very fact that today, if any corporate fraud or scam takes place, the investigating agencies even go and arrest the independent directors of the company. I'm not just talking the promoter directors, but even the independent directors. That itself indicates that the board of directors has a role to play. They are empowered by the law to keep a check on all that the managing director of the company is doing. So they are not some armless or toothless characters. They are sufficiently empowered by the law, provided you're vigilant enough, you're willing to keep your eyes and ears open, you're willing to realize that you have a duty to the public, and you're willing to realize that a minimum sense of due diligence or skepticism is expected of you to keep an eye on what is happening. Are we trying to say that a lady here was allowed to run amok and nobody knew it? She was allowed to run amok because SEBI is on record saying that we had called the directors of NSE and told them what is happening, and yet they kept quiet. So the board of directors, let me first tell you, under the power, under the regulation of SEBI, as well as under the regulation of Companies Act, are sufficiently empowered to keep a check, or if they are not able to keep a check, to at least report. They don't even need to be whistleblowers. They can easily openly report what is happening and ensure that action gets taken. So the board of directors is expected to look after the interests of the shareholders who they represent. As far as the stock exchange is concerned, you have public interest directors. The very term says that they are supposed to look after the interests of the public. They did not do that.
So that means, Akhilesh, if I mean, is there no check? Is there no responsibility for the board? Because what happened in, again I'm saying, what happened in ICICI's case, what happened in Axis Bank case, what happened in what is going to happen to NSE? So somewhere down the line, while we talk this is happening more often than not. This is happening more often than not. For instance, bank employees are arrested, some officers are arrested, but the board is all fine. So somewhere down the line, isn't there more stringent rules? Shouldn't there be more stringent rules to the board? For the
Sujit,
board,
what
I'm
happens
sorry.
is the board of directors is very strongly empowered. But if somewhere they are willing to compromise on their integrity and independence, of course, it has to be for some reason. Nobody is going to compromise his independence and integrity just for the sake of love and affection and free air. It has to be for some pecuniary or other benefit. So if you're willing to compromise your powers, then you had better be pulled up and you had better be held as responsible for the entire nonsense or scam or misconduct or malpractice that has taken place as the main culprit also. To me, to me, all these directors are equally responsible.
Akhilesh, what do you see the future? Because you had predicted the future of ICICI very correctly. You had told that Deepak Kochar may go behind bars. You had told that, and you had also said that Chanda Kochar may not face much of legal hassles. And she is not facing it till date. Future, we don't know. So tell me, what is the future of this particular scam?
See, Sujit, unlike an ICICI bank, NSE is far more a serious institution because all of us who are shareholders and the companies are listed on the NSE, the exchange is expected to look after our interests as investors, as traders, as people who trade through the exchange. So it's a far more serious body. That's the first thing. What is needed, and perhaps that's what the government would probably do, because I just read that the FM saying that the government is watching the developments at NSE. I would believe watching means looking into it with seriousness. That is needed. What is really needed is to first come to the bottom of the co-location scam and to name the culprits and hang them. Let me tell you, many years ago, something similar in terms of preferential access to data took place in the Bombay Stock Exchange. Its president and all the elected office bearers were found to be having access to the BSE data room illegally, unfairly, and the grapevine says, and the grapevine cannot be wrong because you are talking of exchanges having turnovers in lakhs of crores. Grapevine says that those office bearers of BSE made hundreds and thousands of crores because of this unfair, illegal, illegitimate access they had to the data room, to the trading room of the BSE. Something similar has taken place as far as the co-location scam is concerned. At that time, the BSE top office bearers who benefited out of this crime, let's be very clear about it, they have certainly used their clout and the investigation was scuttled. I don't think this time it can happen. So times have changed. You got a situation where information explosion takes place in its own way. Digital and social media is a check on what is happening. The government or the powers to be or those who benefited out of this, they have to be powerful people. I really don't think they'll be able to scuttle the investigation this time. Until that investigation is not complete, however embarrassing be the findings, until the culprits are not identified, however big the loot be, until the government there doesn't come out to say that this is the crime that truly happened. Let's forget the crime of the Baba getting information, etc. It is serious enough, but it is not still impacting the public financially very directly. So till the government doesn't do that, faith in the exchange processes is going to be questioned for some time. And we need to restore faith in the exchange. So what I would expect is this. What might happen in reality, Sujit, is that the beneficiaries of the co-location scam would be so powerful and they would have made so much of money that they might use any possible tool that is there in order to scuttle or delay the investigation and not let the truth surface. If that they manage to do, to me, it would be loss of faith in the systems of the country. I hope that doesn't happen, Sujit.
Akhilesh, I want to ask you another question. As a layman, see, we've been hearing about this scam for the last couple of days. ठीक है ना? I want to understand as a layman who has small investment in shares, how does this scam affect me?
In a fair situation, in a legitimate and legally governed and traded situation, Sujit, there has to be an impartial discovery of price of your shares on the stock market. In other words, nobody should unfairly benefit out of the data which is going to impact the prices of the shares that you own. Now, because of the co-location scam or because of Chitra Ramakrishna sharing confidential data with a so-called Baba who could have misused the data or who could have passed it on. If you remember, Rajat Gupta, the then former managing partner of McKinsey Worldwide, he was put behind the bars in USA only because he had
Yes.
shared information in his capacity as a director of Goldman Sachs with that rogue hedge fund, trader who was. So the fact of the matter is that if information about shares where you have been, an investor or you have been a trader is shared and given to somebody else and he gets an unfair advantage, he will to that extent benefit at your cost. It would either mean that he has sold away his shares at a better price, or it would mean that he bought the shares at a better price because he had advanced access, he had advanced information. So you certainly get impacted directly. It's just that because your shareholding is a minuscule, you are not able to get the impact of it by way of a direct hit. But the fact is, you are going to be a loser.
So a common man is going to be a loser as usual. Akhilesh, before I get into my next topic, next topic, I want to ask you the $1 million question. And this is what I guess everybody wants to know. Who is this Baba? Who is who is this Baba?
SEBI thinks that it is Anand Subramaniam. SEBI not
Hmm,
thinks, it conjectures. I mean, it's trying to connect the dots.
correct.
Whoever the Baba is, Sujit, he's certainly a very influential person. I don't think it is a figment of imagination or theory or hypothesis created by Chitra Ramakrishna. It looks that there are enough footprints about the Baba which are there. And she was, she had no compunction in sharing all the emails that she shared with the Baba. So there was
Correct.
some identity. Whether that identity was a Baba or it was, an imposter is what needs to be checked up. It, of course, cannot be a Baba because rational people do not believe in this kind of a, story being given. It has to be an imposter. It has to be somebody who was misguiding her, taking advantage of her, and benefiting out of it. Now, the fact that those two laptops were junked and destroyed by NEC to me means evidence was destroyed. But I'm sure, Sujit, cyber technology will somewhere be able to come to that IP address of that email ID call, I think Rick Rajur Sam. I'm sure it would be found out. But at the moment, it looks like it was somebody who was close by to her because he certainly used to see her and I could tell her that you were looking good yesterday, or who could tell her that you need to pleat your hair in a better way, you will look better. So I'm sure it was somebody who was seeing her and who was close by. I think that person will be found out, Sujit. I don't think that it can just go unnoticed.
I have a very interesting question from Aru Basu, Akhilesh. Aru Basu says that Nirmala Sitaraman was quiet. Uh, she refused to reply to the reporters when she was asked about this entire incident. Is it fair?
My opinion is something like this, Sujit. Like I said, this exchange holds the wealth of the common man in a sizable manner. Okay, the common man needs to be assuaged and reassured that things will not be allowed to go out of hand. His interests will be looked after. It is one of those moments where a statement has to come from the government. Now, here is a government which loves to come and make statements whenever they wish to. I think some reply should have been given to reassure the public that the government is not going to spare the wrongdoers and a reassurance that do not worry, the interests of the ordinary investor will be looked after and protected and safeguarded. I would have probably looked for that. But then the finance minister is a wiser person, probably more senior person, and she knows what she wishes to speak.
Really appreciate what Varun Ved just wrote, and thank you for his contribution. Akhilesh, tell me, let's move on to the next topic. Actually, because the more one learns about the Baba story, the more one wonders actually how safe are we. Actually, Akhilesh, when you go to banks, you have the Vijay Mallya story, you have the Nirav Modi story. When you go to NSE, you have the Chitra Ramakrishna story. Wherever you go, you're it's absolutely not safe, which technically means as a country our checks and balances are not good enough. In fact, we go behind wrong people. We go behind small people, wherein you have major guys who go and get their way. Anyway, so that's
Sujit, on this, I would actually make a pointer to the people who sit in chairs of power. That when you harass a small trader and try to coercively recover a disputed tax of a few lakhs from him, such that perhaps his business will close down, he will lose his livelihood. When you do that, and when you let the big ones go scot free, who have duped the system for hundreds of thousands of crores by violating every possible law of the land, then you should somewhere feel very guilty that you are responsible for the ruin in the system. I would really appeal to
absolutely
them.
absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. I completely agree to you, and that's what seems to be happening, which is the saddest part of the story. Akhilesh, let's get into our next topic. We have hardly 8 minutes more to go. Akhilesh, tell me, uh, Ukraine and Russia, because of the skirmish around there, it said that the crude oil prices are going to go up, which means that it's estimated to be $100 a barrel. If that happens, the rumors are, or what people generally say, is that the cost of petrol, possibly after the election, after the five assembly elections, the cost of petrol in India and would go up to 200 rupees. Is there a possibility?
Why not? If the government could charge us heavily for petrol without any Ukraine war possibility, then here there were genuine reasons
Yeah,
to do that.
correct.
But the fact of the matter, Sujit, is I do not know how the government and to what extent they will take advantage of something like this. But yes, as far as international markets is concerned, if this kind of a warmongering scenario goes on, and at all points of time there's a threat that some kind of a war will take place, which could escalate into a far bigger situation, then you would expect a lot of disruption to happen in global trade markets, in global shipping lines, in global supply lines and chain lines. Oil would be one of them. It's one of the most volatile ones. It is also one of them which very easily is able to change its prices on the bourses. Yes, prices would go up. They are already elevated. They are threatening to be at $100 a barrel. They are expected to go up even further. That would mean that prices of petrol, diesel, and fuel in the country would go up. The government would certainly not let go this opportunity.
Akhilesh, tell me, um, our taxations on crude oil, on petrol, on diesel are humongous. Our petrol, diesel would otherwise cost much lesser if it wasn't for the kind of taxes both which the state and the center levies on that. Okay. Now, my question is, should should petrol and diesel be taxed so much? Because finally when you tax petrol and diesel, what it happens, it has an effect on each and every product in India, because end of the day every product is has to be transported, okay, from one place to another. You don't grow in a self-contained economy. You get things from different places, so everything goes up. So the worst way you can hit a common man in this country is by charging more for petrol and diesel. Okay, na? Now, if that's the case, then what is the point of and the worst is Akhilesh, this cost of petrol and diesel not only affects the it doesn't affect the rich as much as it affects the poor, because for a person who's getting 10,000 rupees salary a month, also has a scooter which he rides to his office so that he can reach office in 30 rupees or 40 rupees. Okay, he also pays 100 rupees now. And a person who drives a Maybach, he also pays that same whatever 200 rupees a liter or 100 rupees a liter. So the fact is, this is the inequality is definitely widened with this kind of tax structuring and this kind of taxing of petrol. Okay, Number one. Number two, sorry, I want to ask you two questions so that then you are free to answer both. The number two question is, Akhilesh, somewhere down the line, leaving petrol in the hands of free market and saying that भाई पेट्रोल का प्राइस बढ़ गया तो तुमको बढ़ना देना पड़ेगा, नहीं बढ़ गया नहीं देना नहीं पड़ेगा. Are you isn't that too risky? Isn't that too risky? Tomorrow, what happens if this price escalates to $200 per barrel? We are going to pay $500 for a liter?
So, Sujit, the second question first. The government had officially deregulated the pricing of petro products, fuel, but it only took it as a half truth, or it followed it as a rule of convenience. When prices fell, they did not bring down the prices, but when they went up, they happily always increased the prices. So, while the government did deregulate to say let the prices be market denominated or decided by market forces, in reality, it never really adopted that itself. So, if the prices go down, you'll recall in 2014-15 when Mr. Modi came to power, the prices of oil worldwide had collapsed drastically. That even happened last in 2020 when there was a complete lockdown in so many nations and the prices of crude fell sharply. At that time, the prices of fuel in the country did not really come
Did
down.
not.
So the government has been following a policy of convenience on it. But coming to what you said, would it be risky? Well, it's it depends how you are regulating your country. If you are a free market economy and you are letting the market decide, then it will be if the prices go up globally, they go up in India also. They go down globally, they go down also. The way to take care of the fears that you are expressing, that what if it goes to $200 a barrel? Well, these items, petrol, diesel, etc., they are essential commodities. If their prices go up beyond a point, then of course the government would have to step in to subsidize it in some way. So there would be some kind of a hybrid formula that comes in, wherein predominantly it is market denominated, but if it crosses a certain level, then the government would need to step in to make it easier and available and accessible to the common man. That's just what would happen. The first thing you spoke about was how regressive the pricing of oil is because of the high taxes which are put onto it. Of course, these kind of taxes are extremely regressive. A billionaire also pays for the same price per liter. So does a common man with maybe just a scooty or a powered cycle rickshaw for that matter. So it is regressive. The only way out of it that comes is that you need to either give some kind of a slabs in it, which is very difficult to enforce. So the best way out is do not levy these such taxes that they become a burden to the common man big time. And we have heavy taxation on fuel. A rough back of the envelope calculation says that about in the price of fuel that you pay, just about 35% or 40% is the cost of the fuel which is there. The balance 60 to 65% is taxes on it. I
Correct.
think those need to be moderated to also bring down the element of regressiveness which is there in these kind of taxes and fuels. That demand was there, they never heard it, but when the elections came, the tokenism came in and some kind of a dip in prices took place. Maybe after the UP elections, again, the government would come back to increasing it. This time they have got a good excuse if that happens, which is the tension on the Ukraine-Russian border and the threat of war, because of which international prices are elevated.
So very, very valid point you said, because if that is how it is, then when the prices crash, the cost of petrol should crash, which never happened. When the prices crash, the cost of diesel should crash, which never happened. And the fact remains that this is, Akhilesh, do you think there should be a bill, there should be an act which ensures that no government can charge above a particular amount when it comes to, the government is forced to, I mean, what I'm trying to say is the government is close to at least regulate the forced to regulate the cost of petrol and diesel in the country.
Sujit, the fact of the matter is that the government itself deregulated it. But if the government itself does not want to follow its own policies and laws, then, I mean, are you going to rush to the Supreme Court every time with a PIL?
Yeah, that too. But
So, irrespective of what the law could be or should be or would be, if the government itself is contravening the law at the first instance, giving all kinds of reasons, or if the government likes to follow a policy of convenience that suits it, then no law, no policy will truly deliver the objective that you and I are discussing.
Akhilesh, I've got 1 minute and two questions. I'll ask you quickly. So yes or no. Question number one: will Chitra go behind bars?
My gut says yes. And the reasoning for it is that the co-location scam will finally envelope all these officials at the NSE. And once that happens, answer is yes.
So
She will
Chitra will
not
go
go
behind
behind the
bars.
bars because of the Yogi affair, but
Hmm.
because of co-location and the algo trading matter.
Okay. Okay. So that's your take. Fine. My second question: will petrol reach 200 rupees post 10th of March?
A liter in India,
Yeah.
it won't really go up to that figure because it's not going to shoot up to that level by then in international markets. But certainly you can expect, that once the elections are over, the government would start increasing the prices of fuel all over again.
So that's that, Akhilesh. Thank you so much for your inputs. Thank you so much, and always pleasure talking to you. See
Thank
you
you,
next
Sujit.
time.
Pleasure here. Bye.